What is the reality, and what does that have to do with Meghan Markle, with Ghislaine?
And he persuaded them, saying, I am the victim of a sexual assault, and I can tell you the
real reason the royals get shaky around Meghan has nothing to do with interviews, drama, or headlines. It's the circles she stepped into long before she ever wore a title.
Nickname is gonna shock you.
Because I'm from the States, you don't grow up with the same...
She wasn't just another actress moving around Hollywood. She was navigating rooms that made the royal family uncomfortable in ways they never expected. People thought Ghislaine Maxwell had nothing left to say, like the story was over and she'd just sit in that cold cell and fade from everyone's mind. But out of nowhere, she leaned back on that hard metal cot, opened her mouth, and dropped a name nobody on this planet thought they'd hear come from her lips: Meghan Markle.
Towards Harry and Meghan, because Harry and Meghan are so important that, of course,
When those so-called private conversations slipped out into the world, folks expected straight explosions, big names, clear timelines, the whole messy saga laid out like a checklist. Instead, what the public got was a pile of files that looked like they'd been hit with a blackout marker by someone who hadn't slept in 3 nights.
and is guilty, when you're a defense attorney. But this one is a gift from above. She's got a
whole hours gone, paragraphs covered, answers wiped out, while the leading questions stayed untouched, like they were daring people to connect dots that weren't even visible anymore. It didn't feel like someone protecting anything. It felt like somebody was scared of what might pop out if the blinds were lifted even a little.
really rankled was the Sussex's rejection of our most revered institution.
They tried calling it standard privacy work, but everyone knew that didn't match the situation at all. Maxwell's privacy is long gone, and Epstein definitely isn't asking for special treatment. So the excuses didn't land for a second. Most of the people involved had already shared their stories with the world, so why did these specific sections get wiped out like somebody was scrubbing history with both hands? And why did 12 full hours of testimony vanish like they never even happened? Because those blackout marks weren't sloppy at all. They were sharp, calculated, almost surgical. This wasn't someone hiding what happened. This was someone hiding who was tied to the room when it happened.
his juror questionnaire that he had been the victim of a sexual assault. And
the name that kept popping up wasn't some random figure. It was a name nobody ever linked to this universe in public. Not even once. Meghan Markle. Not tossed in casually, not mentioned by mistake, but repeated, and always inside the exact pages that disappeared into those thick black bars.
And a happier Harry, who I suspect still covets the half-in and half-out.
These weren't light mentions either. They were specific, situational, the kind that show someone wasn't standing near the drama. They were present when the doors closed and the real conversation started. Private gatherings, invite-only yacht circles, dinners where phones stayed outside and reputations were the only ticket in, spaces the palace would love to pretend never existed.
Current Cold War status. Dunlop continues, the Prince of Wales would be
Somebody out there clearly decided the world wasn't prepared for the version of Meghan that walked into those rooms before she stepped into royal life. And the way those pages were erased tells you everything. Her past wasn't just complicated, it made powerful people nervous. Inside those circles, under her real name, far from Hollywood lights and PR polish, she wasn't known as Meghan. She was known by one simple word: flower.
about the memories of the Maxwell accusers. They were saying
And this wasn't some cute nickname or a stage alias. This was a code name, the kind people only use in rooms where anonymity isn't a choice. It's the entry fee. These were spaces where your identity didn't come from Instagram, photo shoots, or industry gossip. It came from who brought you in, who vouched for you, and what role you played in the room. Maxwell claimed flower wasn't mentioned once. It came up multiple times, recognized instantly, the type of label people remember because it shows up again and again at very specific, very exclusive gatherings. Code names in those circles weren't passed out like party favors. You earned one if you were operating in spaces way beyond Hollywood after-parties.
public sympathy, but moods can change. I don't know about you, but that sounds like a threat to me.
These were international yacht circles, dinners run by high-ranking financiers, environments where everyone arrived with a handler and walked out with new connections they'd never admit in public. And according to the whispers, Meghan didn't just show up. She had her own profile, a private resume created for gatekeepers instead of casting directors. A full dossier used to introduce her to people with real reach, not cameras or tabloids.
Negative headlines. It will be history that judges William, his more powerful older brother, only by
a guide outlining who she was, what she brought to the table, and why she was being circulated through those circles with purpose. A resume from a world Meghan has never acknowledged. A world where she picked up how power and wealth move quietly behind closed doors. And the way she later navigated elite spaces so effortlessly proved one thing: she wasn't new to that world at all.
Questionnaires one by one, and specifically assured defense counsel that had concerns don't.
Long before Meghan stepped into Buckingham Palace, long before headlines turned her into a worldwide debate or a royal issue, she had already brushed past the outer edges of the ecosystem surrounding Prince Andrew. Not romantically, not socially in any direct way, but she was present in the same carefully curated spaces he moved through, the kind of environments where nothing happened by coincidence. What people don't get about Andrew's circles is that there was never anything casual about them. These weren't random house gatherings or Hollywood mixers. These were rooms shaped by billionaire hosts, political sharks, elite handlers.
That his reign has the requisite hallmarks of modern monarchy: compassion and magnanimity.
Old money publicists, and people who understood exactly who to bring in and for what purpose. To land on those guest lists, you didn't need fame at all. You needed to be interesting, strategically placed, or useful in a way only insiders understood.
William would do it either, because how can you forgive somebody that hasn't asked for it? So now we're...
According to Maxwell, Meghan checked those boxes perfectly. She wasn't trying to be the star of the room. She wasn't chasing attention. She blended into the background like a pro, watching everything and everyone, absorbing how power jumped from handshake to handshake like a silent current. That ability to sit still, read the room, and adapt instantly became her hidden advantage. In those early days, her low profile made her practically invisible, and invisibility is a powerful tool in environments where everyone else is being watched like a live broadcast. Maxwell implied that Meghan's presence wasn't some random overlap. Someone brought her in, someone placed her exactly where they wanted her, and at least one of those people was Maxwell herself.
That Meghan Markle's CV included adult entertainment and entertaining guests.
So when Meghan popped up years later inside the royal sphere, not everyone reacted with shock. People from Andrew's orbit didn't even blink. They looked like they had seen this movie before, because they had. Every story like this always has one person who isn't the loudest, but knows the whole map. Someone who understands the rooms, the players, the alliances, and the quiet drama behind the scenes. In this story, that person is Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York.
To put money on it right now, Dan, I would say this verdict is probably going to get thrown out.
Most people believe Meghan met Fergie politely right before the wedding, that cute teach me how to curtsy moment the press loved to replay. Nice story, very royal, very polished, but insiders swear the two crossed paths long before that, back when Meghan was already appearing in those invite-only circles. Maxwell's network and Epstein's network overlapped with Sarah's world, and Fergie wasn't a stranger in those settings at all.
Before that. So you know, Jeffrey Epstein was invited to the Royal Box in 2000.
She moved through those spaces with ease. Part fundraiser, part social diplomat, part survivor of her own public storms. She understood the whispered warnings, the unspoken rules, and the power games that shaped everything behind the curtains. There were even whispers that Fergie and Maxwell had their own quiet rivalry, not personal, but strategic. Two powerful women moving through the same elite orbit, each trying to hold influence over different corners of that world.
Incredible, because Jeffrey Epstein was in 2000 invited all.
So when Meghan resurfaced years later attached to Harry, Sarah didn't show shock at all. She showed caution because Fergie knew exactly what kind of rooms Meghan had walked through before, and exactly which names had been floating around her in those early days. And inside the royal family, there are many things they can tolerate: tradition, chaos, even public drama. But the one thing they fear with their whole chest is pattern recognition.
And there's even said that the Queen unknowingly danced with Jeffrey Epstein. But going back to Meghan.
And Sarah recognized the pattern instantly because she'd seen this exact layout before. If Maxwell's world was the murky undercurrent everyone pretended didn't exist, then Soho House was the polished, luxurious surface everyone pretended was innocent. A members-only playground where secrets hid behind designer sunglasses and introductions held more value than jewelry.
I want to put it kindly and nicely, has been around the block so many times, she is already there.
And the man standing quietly behind many of those glittering rooms was Ron Burkle, the billionaire who always seemed to know everyone who mattered, and everyone who pretended not to matter. Burkle wasn't just rich, he was connected, the kind of connected that made Hollywood insiders whisper, made politicians act politely, and made royals stay alert. Financiers, media bosses, actors, aristocrats, they all moved through his orbit at some point. And quietly woven into that same massive web was Maxwell, long before her name turned toxic. Which brings us to April 2015. Soho House Istanbul opens its doors for the very first time, and the guest list is flawless. A mix of elites, social strategists, rising stars, and old money dressed like new money.
Forget that Virginia Roberts called her as a witness because she had...
Prince Harry shows up. And Meghan? She's there too. Not by coincidence, not by luck, not because she happened to be traveling. This was a placement. Rumors started instantly, swirling through the crowd like smoke. Some said Markle himself arranged the guest pairing. Others whispered that Meghan had been placed into that orbit by friends who understood exactly what kind of spaces she had navigated before. The same discreet network people rarely talk about out loud. She had moved through those circles as Flower, a name only insiders understood.
Back for Meghan Markle, almost like Fergie, to come back. But Ghislaine revelations put Meghan in a very, very bad light, because if it is all true, Meghan Markle is...
Harry had no clue who she really crossed paths with, and depending on who you listen to, the details change, but the outcome stays the same, because that night in Istanbul flipped her entire life upside down. Within a year, Meghan's image sharpened like someone hit a switch. Suddenly, she was global, polished, positioned as a humanitarian, stepping closer and closer to a royal-ready persona.
And after that meeting in Istanbul at the opening of the Soho House, she suddenly decided to become...
Moves like that don't happen overnight unless somebody powerful is working the shadows, guiding the transformation, fully aware of who Meghan used to be and who she was about to become. Most people think the redactions in Maxwell's leaked conversations were meant to shield Meghan, that the palace swooped in, the press got quiet, and some invisible force wrapped her past in bubble wrap. But that theory falls apart the second you look closely at what was actually wiped out.
He did not want to have her anywhere near her. We all know that Meghan Markle, oh, I didn't know who Harry...
Those censors weren't protecting Meghan at all. They were protecting the men she once shared rooms with, the donors, the royals, the financiers, the high-level billionaires, the kinds of names that would shake the world if they appeared next to anything connected to Maxwell's mess. Meghan wasn't the threat in those papers. She was the liability, the witness who accidentally saw too much long before she ever imagined marrying into royalty.
She was fully aware. Not only did she know who Harry was, she said after him.
She saw faces people desperately want forgotten. She overheard conversations whispered in locked rooms. She stepped inside environments where nobody ever expected the young woman known as Flower to rise into global relevance. Then she married a prince, and everything changed again, because now she wasn't just connected, she was powerful in a way nobody planned for.
Time. We know that she couldn't get a job anywhere, and suddenly she's in the royal circles, just like...
Suddenly, Meghan held something more valuable than scandal. She held memory, and memory scares people more than headlines ever will. That's why full hours of Maxwell's testimony vanished under black ink, not because Meghan did something wild, but because her presence alone could blow open the lives of those who actually did. People want to blame Netflix, Oprah, Spare, the interviews, the California drama, all of it.
We know that Meghan Markle, sure, she went after Harry, but she had help getting there.
But the real fracture between William and Harry runs way deeper than cameras or podcasts. It slices directly into the past, a past Harry refuses to question, and a past William refuses to let anywhere near the monarchy's future.
For Meghan. But I don't think they're covering up for Meghan as much as they're protecting who put Meghan there.
William's distrust of Meghan has nothing to do with her personality, her behavior, or her interviews. It's about proximity. Her proximity to Andrew's old circles, her presence in elite rooms tied to one of the darkest chapters in modern royal memory, a chapter the family wants sealed forever.
Sudden rise or being able to infiltrate the royal family so quickly, to infiltrate.
Her awareness, whether she meant it or not, included people the palace spent decades trying to erase from the narrative. That's why Balmoral turned into a symbolic battlefield the moment Andrew tried to attend just one church service. William delivered the quietest but coldest ultimatum possible, one that shook the entire estate without a single headline. Either Andrew shows up or the heir does, but not both. Andrew stepped back, and with that single move, William sent the message insiders had been whispering behind those royal walls for years. There will be no contamination of the crown's future by the ghosts of its past.
Soho House and Ron Burkle. Because it all started.
And unfortunately for Meghan, her history, however circumstantial, placed her right on the wrong side of that protective line. Not because she did anything illegal or wild, but because she carries memories of a world the monarchy wants permanently forgotten. And every real scandal starts long before the public wakes up to it, long before the royal wedding, before Netflix, before interviews, before anything looked polished on camera.
Opening of Soho House. And we know because they were both there. The Soho house had...
In Meghan's case, insiders say the spark allegedly started on a yacht, not the flashy influencer type, but the handwritten guest list kind. The kind where NDAs don't need signatures, where silence is the default setting, and where the faces on board can shift entire markets with one phone call. The same circle connected to the earliest whispers around Maxwell's censored files.
2015. Do I have any doubts that Meghan Markle was a call girl? Of course not. I don't have any.
That yacht, according to those who claim to know, was the moment she became Flower. That's where she crossed paths with names the papers refused to print because they know better. That's where she got her first glimpse of how real power operates, silently and invisibly, without hashtags, cameras, or applause. No wild behavior, just exposure, just access. But access to the wrong world at the wrong time can rewrite an entire life, because that single night set off a chain reaction. Yacht to Soho House to Istanbul, Istanbul to Harry.
The connections of the people that put her there. There's no, by the way, she was...
And that path eventually placed her inside Buckingham Palace as a duchess, a storyline the palace once scrubbed from the timeline like it never existed. Now that Maxwell has started speaking again, that carefully maintained silence protecting these connections is cracking fast. Her words, even the censored ones, are forcing people to look twice at stories they once dismissed as gossip. The storm isn't forming, it's already shaking the ground.
Ukraine and the Q&A in Ukraine with the university saying that she...
Leaks are getting louder. Sources who stayed quiet for years are suddenly whispering again. People who once laughed off these old tales are now pulling them back out with brand new suspicion. And the real question isn't whether Meghan's past will resurface, it's how much will break through the blackout and who gets caught when it does. Did those missing 12 hours actually contain the overlap? Which names showed up beside hers? Which events pulled her into those circles? And why are so many powerful people terrified of those pieces going public? Because once a storm grows this big, silence stops being protection. It starts looking like confirmation. And this time, no blackout marker in the world can keep the truth buried forever. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.